Have you ever pondered over the roots of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? How did it evolve into one of the most enduring and divisive conflicts in modern history? Let's travel back in time to the year 1947, a momentous year that saw the creation of a new nation, Israel. This came about as a result of the United Nations partition plan for Palestine, a decision that was not taken lightly, but steeped in the historical context of the time. The world was still reeling from the horrors of World War II. The Holocaust had left a deep scar on humanity, a chilling reminder of the depths of hate and intolerance. 6 million Jews had perished in this genocide, their lives snuffed out in the most brutal of ways. The survivors were left homeless and stateless, a people in search of a place to call home. The international community, under the umbrella of the United Nations, sought to address this crisis. The solution: a homeland for the Jewish people, a place where they could rebuild their lives and their communities without fear of persecution. The chosen location was Palestine, a region in the Middle East that had been under British control since the end of World War I. This land, steeped in history and significance for multiple religions, was partitioned. One part was to become the new Jewish state of Israel. The other part was designated for the Arab Palestinians who already resided there. But this decision, hailed as a solution by some, was seen as a catastrophe by others. For the Arab Palestinians, this was their home, a land they had tilled and toiled, a land where their ancestors were buried. The imposition of a new state on a part of their homeland was met with resistance, sparking off a conflict that has persisted to this day. Thus, in 1947, a new nation was born, a safe haven for a persecuted people. But what of the people who already called this land home? With the birth of Israel, the seeds of conflict were sown. But why? Let's delve into this question. The establishment of Israel in 1947 was not a peaceful process. It was a time of turmoil, confusion, and a profound sense of loss for the Palestinian people. The creation of Israel marked the start of massive displacement for Palestinians. Imagine waking up one day to find that your home, your land, your very existence is being challenged. That was the reality for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. They were uprooted from their homes, forced to leave the lands they had known for generations. This was not a voluntary migration. It was a forced displacement, a mass exodus driven by fear and uncertainty. In the wake of Israel's establishment, the region plunged into war. The Arab-Israeli War of 1948, also known as the War of Independence in Israel, was a pivotal moment in the history of the Middle East. Arab nations, incensed by the creation of Israel, launched a military intervention. The war was fierce and bloody, leaving deep scars that remain visible to this day. The war ended, but peace did not follow. Instead, it marked the beginning of the Palestinian refugee crisis. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians found themselves stateless, their homes now a part of the newly formed Israel. They were scattered across the region, in refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and the West Bank. The plight of these refugees was, and continues to be, a significant source of tension in the region. The birth of Israel was not just the genesis of a new nation. It was the beginning of a conflict that has defined the Middle East for the better part of a century. A conflict born out of a struggle for identity, for a place to call home, for the right to exist. The stage was set for a conflict that would span generations, a conflict rooted in displacement and a struggle for homeland. What followed was a series of events that further deepened the divide, setting the stage for a protracted and complex conflict that continues to this day. As decades rolled on, the conflict between Israel and Palestine intensified. But how did it evolve? To answer that, we have to hop on a time machine and journey through the last 7 decades. In the late 40s and 50s, the fledgling state of Israel worked tirelessly to establish itself. However, surrounding Arab nations did not recognize Israel's sovereignty, leading to the outbreak of the Six-Day War in 1967. This war was a pivotal moment in this saga, as Israel seized control of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. The Six-Day War didn't just redraw the map, it deepened the chasm between Israel and Palestine. Following the Six-Day War, a period of relative calm descended, only to be broken by the eruption of the First Intifada in 1987. This Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation was marked by civil disobedience, general strikes, boycotts, and a notable increase in violence. It was a stark reminder that the quest for self-determination was far from over. The 90s brought a glimmer of hope as world powers brokered peace processes, most notably the Oslo Accords. This agreement, signed in 1993, aimed to gradually transfer governance of the West Bank and Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority. Yet, the peace processes were fraught with difficulties and ultimately failed to resolve the core issues. The Second Intifada, which erupted in 2000, was even more violent than the first, further straining relations. Following these intifadas, the landscape of the conflict changed, marked by a shift towards unilateral actions and away from negotiations. In the last 2 decades, the situation has remained volatile, with intermittent periods of relative calm and violent clashes. The struggle for existence, for recognition and rights, continues to shape not just the Middle East, but the world. From wars to peace treaties, the struggle for existence has shaped not just the Middle East, but the world. The Israel-Palestine conflict is not just about borders and territories, it's about people. But what has been the human cost? The impact on the Palestinian people is immense and multifaceted. It's a complex tapestry woven with threads of displacement, statelessness, and human rights violations, all set against the backdrop of an ongoing humanitarian crisis. Let's start with displacement. Since the conflict's inception, countless Palestinians have been uprooted from their homes. This displacement is not a one-time historical event, but a continuous process. It's not just about the loss of a physical structure, but the erasure of a sense of belonging, the severance of ties to a homeland. Then there's the issue of statelessness. With no country to call their own, many Palestinians live in a state of limbo. Stateless persons face numerous challenges, from limited access to basic services like education and healthcare, to a lack of legal protection. Imagine living your life in a perpetual state of uncertainty, without the rights and protections that most of us take for granted. And we cannot talk about the human impact without addressing the human rights violations. Reports of excessive use of force, restrictions on freedom of movement, and arbitrary detentions are not uncommon. These are not isolated incidents, but systemic issues that pervade the day-to-day lives of Palestinians. The humanitarian crisis is another stark reality. With limited access to clean water, healthcare, and employment opportunities, Palestinians face a daily struggle for survival. The conflict has also left deep psychological scars, affecting generations of Palestinians. The human cost of this conflict is not just a statistic, it is the lived reality of millions of Palestinians. It is a testament to the dire consequences of political decisions on everyday lives. As we delve deeper into this conflict, let's not forget the human faces behind the headlines, the personal stories behind the political rhetoric. The human cost of the Israel-Palestine conflict is a testament to the dire consequences of political decisions on everyday lives. Today, the conflict between Israel and Palestine remains unresolved. But where do we go from here? Indeed, this question continues to reverberate across the world, echoing in the halls of diplomacy and in the hearts of those directly affected by the conflict. The present situation is a complex tapestry, woven with threads of historical grievances, political maneuvering, and deeply rooted emotions. One pivotal development in recent years was the US recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. This move sparked worldwide controversy, further entrenching the divide and igniting a fresh wave of tensions. Jerusalem, a city sacred to 3 of the world's largest religions, remains a potent symbol and a bone of contention in this enduring dispute. Looking ahead, the future presents a range of scenarios. On one hand, there exists the possibility of continued conflict, fueled by the status quo of occupation and resistance. On the other, there is the potential for a peaceful resolution, with the establishment of 2 sovereign nations existing side by side in harmony. This dream, often referred to as the 2-state solution, is seen by many as the most viable path towards lasting peace. However, achieving this goal is easier said than done. The process requires an immense amount of political will, compromises, and above all, a shared commitment to peace and justice. It demands acknowledging past wrongs and working towards a future that ensures the rights and dignity of all people, regardless of their ethnicity or faith. In the end, the path forward is far from clear, and the journey will undoubtedly be fraught with challenges. Yet hope persists. Hope for a future where the children of Israel and Palestine can grow up free from the shadow of conflict, where they can live, learn, and love in a land that respects their history and embraces their potential. The future of Israel and Palestine hangs in the balance, a testament to a conflict born of a tumultuous past and a future yearning for peace and resolution.